Hello and welcome back to another one of our series of videos on different pilgrimage sites. And today I have the Reverend Deacon Stephen O'Brien who's going to speak to us about Fatima, I believe.
Yes indeed, thank you Stephen.
No problem. And Fatima, well, it's one of those places of pilgrimage that is spoken of quite a lot. A lot of people will know bits about it or bits of the story, for instance the miracle of the sun and so forth, and quite recently there was a film about Fatima. In the Seminary we recently were able to purchase and watch the film of Fatima, which I believe you were there at the screening.
It was, yes.
And it was very well attended and it's something that we very much enjoyed. But can you just say something, Stephen, about the history and significance of Fatima?
Certainly. Fatima is about halfway between Lisbon and Porto in Portugal. And importantly, until about 120 years ago, there was almost nothing there. And in 1917, a very poor family, the Martel family, lived in a tiny village called Covaderia. And the family had many children, both the Martels and their cousins. And they were out, three of them, Francisco, Jacinta and Lucia. And they were out tending the sheep and the goats up on the hills. And suddenly Our Blessed Lady appeared to them. And she returned on quite a few occasions, as Stephen mentioned. Perhaps the most famous is the miracle of the sun. But there were various other things as well. An injunction to pray the rosary, an injunction to pray for souls, to keep souls out of the other place. And this wasn't entirely popular in Portugal at the time, because Portugal had, after many years as a Catholic country, increasingly been taken over by quite an anti-Catholic regime. And in fact, the local mayor at one point arrested the children and tried to convince them that this was all nonsense. And they wouldn't say that, and they made themselves quite unpopular. Now, Francisco and Jacinta both died in the time of the Spanish flu, and only a few years ago they were declared saints by the church. I wasn't able to be there in person, but I was able to watch it live on the internet, and it was a very moving occasion. Lucia died, oh goodness me, about 15 years ago now, and she went into a convent and spent her life as a nun, but also, at the command of the church, wrote down her experiences. And together with other apparitions by Our Blessed Lady, like those at Lourdes, these have inspired so many Christians over the years to deepen their faith.
So for you, how many times have you been to Fatima?
I've been 4 times, and curiously, the very first time I went, I didn't really know I was going to go.
Okay.
That sounds a strange thing to say. I went at the beginning of the summer holidays. I was teaching at the time. And it was in the spring holidays one day, I felt, not to put too fine a point on it, a call to go on pilgrimage. And so I sat down with a laptop, and within 5 minutes I thought, I must go to Fatima. I'd never been to Fatima before. The wonders of modern technology meant I found out very quickly that it was very practical. And I went, and it all fell into place. I have a curious story about that, actually. I had the flu the weekend before I was supposed to go. I wasn't at all well. And in fact, on Sunday afternoon, I was running a temperature before the Monday I was meant to be flying. So I went to bed and thought, what do I do? And come the Monday morning, I was just well enough, I was being sponsored by paracetamol, to stumble to the station to go to Gatwick Airport. And just well enough to fly to Porto, to find the coach and get to Fatima. And after one night in Fatima, I was recovered. Not getting over the flu, recovered, I was well. And I've always felt that this admittedly minor personal miracle says something about the place. There is something in that place. It's very beautiful, even if you can look past the many somewhat concrete hotels which have gone up. Well, pilgrims have got to stay somewhere. But even now, the spot where the Chapel of the Apparitions is, that's precisely on the spot, then out in the Portuguese mountains, where the little shepherds saw Our Lady. There's something very prayerful there. It's also worth saying that you can go and explore Stations of the Cross on the way to where they lived. But there's something very moving about going to where they lived, still in Aljustrel, the village where at least half the family lived, if my memory serves me right. And you can see the family home. This was a very poor family. A home you would expect maybe 2 people to live in, and I think it was about 12 lived there. They eked a living. And I think for me this adds to the story. But you know, funny enough, I had an interesting mission, which was to get a suitable gift to bring home. May have been pilgrimage, but I still had to bring home an appropriate present. And I went into the gift shop in Aljustrel, and there was what you'd expect, some nice little things, but they're all quite endearingly homemade. A fridge magnet made on a bathroom tile, for example, which I've got on the fridge at home now. And the lady running it said to me, "Are you English?" "Yes." "Do you see that photo up there?" She pointed to a photo of the little shepherds. "My uncle and aunt," she said. And so I was talking to a relative of the little shepherds, and apart from the fact I thought it was rather nicer to be buying these sort of things, helping the family. They were making a nice, quiet living, selling things to pilgrims. But also it seemed particularly moving to have that contact. There's something which I can't put my finger on, but there's something so prayerful, so peaceful, so beautiful. The motorway climbs up into the mountains, and so far as a motorway journey can be beautiful, the latter bit of it certainly is. But it's very special.
Well, it sounds like your experience of Fatima and your trips there have really impacted upon your faith and enabled you to grow in your spiritual life. And there are many people who have a real devotion to Our Lady of Fatima. But there's also a lot discussed about Fatima and different controversies, as well as other different things that are said and discussed. But what for you is the key message of Fatima, which the world today needs to hear?
Our Lady never witnesses to herself, she witnesses to her Son. And she comes, it seems to me, always at crucial moments when we need to hear the age-old Christian message again. Just on the cusp of the 20th century, for Portugal with its anti-clerical regime, for Europe on the beginning of a century that saw almost a wholesale turning away from faith in many places, we need to hear again the Christian message. We need to believe. We need to believe in Christ, His love, His mercy. And Our Lady came at the beginning of the century that bore me to tell the world into which I was born again, listen to Him, do whatever He tells you. And in one sense, it's not a new message, but then Lourdes wasn't a new message. Walsingham wasn't a new message. It's the age-old message.
Yeah, and a beautiful message. And it's certainly, Fatima is someone I would like to visit. I know there was quite a few seminarians here who were hoping to do a trip to Fatima, but it wasn't able to go ahead because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We've just got the EasyJet refund.
And you've just got the refund,
Yes.
thank goodness. It took you quite a while, I believe, to get the money back, but you've got the money back,
Yes.
so that's good. But hopefully in the future, myself and I'm sure many others will want to visit Fatima, and thank you so much for telling us a little bit about it, about the history and your own personal experience. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you, Stephen. And thanks for joining in, everybody.